Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. Now, homeschooling, or rather home education, as the government calls it, appears to be gaining popularity in South Africa. A number of factors motivate these parents to reach such decisions. What are the perks and pitfalls of home education? We're joined now by Elijah Mhlanga. He's the spokesperson for the National Department of Education. Thanks for joining us. No rest for the wicked, I suppose.
Yeah,
you have to work on a daily basis.
Yeah. Thank you.
What is homeschooling?
It's home education, because a home is not a school. There has to be certain requirements that a building would have to meet for it to be called a school.
Even the building?
Of course.
Yeah.
That's why when you apply for a school, when you want to register a school, there will be officials from the department who will come through to conduct an inspection to see if you can operate a school in that building.
Okay.
So a home as well. When you want to register your children for home education, we need to understand that it's a home and it's education taking place in the home.
Yeah.
So it's not a school.
Besides the infrastructure, what other considerations are there?
Well, for home, you need to make sure that there's appropriate environment where it will be quiet, where learning will be conducive, and that there will be a dedicated space for that learning and teaching process to happen without any interruptions, because the learner's interests need to be taken into account at all times. It's not about keeping them at home so they can play the whole day, but learning must happen.
Is it a decision that parents just take, just of course, because they would like their kids to have a different environment, or is it brought about by certain demands in life?
It's certain demands in life. You need to think properly and think hard about it and consider the options and the logistical implications of doing such, because some who take an emotional decision to remove their children from mainstream schools and take them into their home, they encounter challenges and then finding themselves having to return those kids to school because you didn't really apply your mind to the realities of having to be the teacher yourself.
Yeah.
And making sure that learning and teaching is happening and that assessments are taking place and that you are actually able to monitor the progress that your children are making. So it needs time, it needs resources, it needs you to be there and be available.
So just based on the name homeschooling, one assumes that it's a family thing where you are educating your kids. But more and more you're hearing of people talking of homeschooling or home education where there's a several number of kids coming through to a particular home to be taught. Is it still the same?
That's mischievous. It's wrong. It's an incorrect application of the policy, and we've been doing communication to tell people to stop doing that, because once you receive kids from other places, you are converting that into a school which is illegal, which is not registered. It cannot be like that. The policy says that the site of education is the home. We know that some people say, I'm homeschooling my children, whereas what they are talking about is that they take their children to some center somewhere which is run by someone, and it's not even registered. That's wrong. That's why people easily call it homeschooling, when in fact it's home education, because if you call it home education, then you'll understand that the site of learning and teaching is the home.
So what legal provision is there for those people who use their homes to bring in kids from other families to come and educate? Is there provision for that?
No, it has to be your children. What is allowed is for you to bring a tutor into your home to help your children, because as much as you, the mother or father, you are the teacher, you might not be able to teach all the subjects, so you will need help. So you will bring that person into the home to assist you with teaching those subjects and giving you some other teaching aids that might help you to impart information of various subjects to your children. So that's what must happen. This grouping of children from neighbors and friends and relatives into one place and you're calling that homeschooling is wrong.
So a person watching us now and thinking they would like to entertain or go this route, how do they interact with the department?
Well, they need to contact us. We always prefer sitting down with a parent, allowing them an opportunity to ask us questions, because you'll have to register those children. That's one thing that we must do. I've come across a situation when someone said, I'm homeschooling my children, and those children are not registered. That's wrong. If the department doesn't know about it, then there's a problem.
It can be recognized, especially when they need to matriculate. How do you recognize those kind of events?
Exactly, because we need to know where they were before they got to matric, because remember, matric, it becomes a national examination, whether in the IEB or any of the other
wherever
bodies,
you're studying.
It will have to be. So we will need to know how you've been progressing. We need reports that will indicate your performance in the various subjects.
You probably don't take part in these interviews, but I'm just curious, and I imagine our viewers are curious as well. When you going through the processes, what kind of reasons are parents giving as to why they want to go this route? I imagine for some it's quality of education, for others it's the cost of education. Are those some of the reasons, and what are the other reasons?
Yeah, some do. Some do say it's the quality of the education, but others say, I don't want my children to be in an environment where there's violence or there's bullying and all of those things. But you will find that anywhere, where there are people even at work, you get bullied. So there's no way of running away from that as long as you are alive. So you need to find ways of empowering your children to be able to survive such difficult circumstances. So people do give those reasons, but some of the compelling reasons include a child who has a medical condition which needs
and
the
still
parent
needs
and
an
guardian.
education.
Yeah, and still needs an education, but you need to make sure that the parent is there. Only the parent can understand what type of assistance that
it's
child
understandable
would need.
in that way.
Exactly.
I imagine.
So there are such situations, and we fully support those parents because there's space for it. The fact that there's a policy regulating home education, it means that the system caters for it, and we provide and support people who opt for that particular choice.
In fact, that was going to be my next question. Just in general terms, when there's no specific reason or special reason, does the department encourage this? Do you encourage South African parents to go this route?
Yeah, if you can, as long as you understand what it means. It's mostly people who have the resources that you are able to stay at home and make that your daily and main duty. So if you have such resources and you have the time, most important time, then it's fine. We'll tell you what it means, and officials from a provincial education department where you are located will come to your home to help you. But it's also part of the monitoring process to ensure that learning and teaching is happening, because at the end of the day, our interest is to ensure that your children are not just playing but are learning, because they need to be moving right up the grades, knowing what they should be knowing in terms of the curriculum. As you know that the CAPS curriculum says in a particular grade you need to have certain skills. So the assessments that we do and the monitoring that we do ensures that it happens in that way.
It's an important conversation that I don't think we have enough in terms of citizens knowing about their choices in terms of choosing education systems for their children. Yeah,
you're absolutely right, and we appreciate this opportunity because it helps us to convey that information, that it's available, it's there. We are not opposed to it. We have created an environment for it to happen for those people that want to use it. It's an option that's there. People have a right to make decisions. That's why even those parents who take their children out of the school into their home, and when they can't do it anymore, we welcome their children back, but we want the reports. We want to know where they were in their learning, so we can be able to put them back in the right grade.
So we know you've been here already about the conversation about grade 9 being used as an exit point, but we're just using the opportunity of having you here just to get further clarification. What is the real stance of the education department in this conversation?
Well, the real stance is that the general education certificate is not a school leaving certificate, but it's a certificate that will ensure that it tells us the foundational skills that you have and which career path you can follow, because it is part and parcel of the three-stream model which we have been implementing, which has technical, vocational, as well as academic streams. And we want to make sure that learners have their curriculum offering in school, that you don't drop out. Because when we examine some of the reasons for dropping out, they say school is boring, I don't know, there's no use for me to come to school. It's simply because the system has not been catering for every interest. So now we're opening it wide, making sure that the scope is such that people can choose even trade subjects and go to institutions where they will be able to learn and be trained in skills-based programs. So that's what we are saying. So this certificate, you will use it to access further education and training in the trade areas of learning.
Where do you think the mix-up or the miscommunication occurred, where the message started to mean something else?
It's when people thought school ends in grade 9. And that's a problem. That's what people thought we meant, when in fact we are not. I think the word exit got a lot of people confused. It didn't mean it's the end of your schooling. You still need to proceed and do other things and get grade 12, or whether in school, in an ordinary school, or in a technical school somewhere where it will be called something as well, N6, N7, whatever it will be called. But you need to have gone to a training institution which will give you skills that you can use, whether it's plumbing, electrical, automotive, mechanical, whatever it is.
What happens though, and this is a hypothetical question, because it would have to happen for you to know, but what happens when two people who come from two different backgrounds, the one exited in grade 9 and the one went on and furthered their tertiary education and completed it, when they're competing for a job in an HR environment and the HR manager has to decide which one to take? How do they compete?
That's an interesting question. I can answer it very easily. Industry has told us which careers are in demand. They are looking for people with skills, not qualifications.
Okay.
So if you have a qualification with skills, you are more likely to be a person of choice for the HR person who has done the recruitment for the organization.
Whichever level you exited at?
No, remember, with grade 9, you go further. So if you go and complete your matric in a technical college where there's a program that is practically based.
So basically what you're saying is that we still need to unpack this conversation.
We need to, of course.
Thank you so much for coming through.
Great stuff.
Elijah Mhlanga from the Department of Education.